The last few weeks and, well, pretty much the last few months have been interesting times in the gaming industry. We've seen games get delayed, major releases have had their story beats leak, and now we're seeing a trend with EA games either having their support pulled altogether or going back to the drawing board. I'm of course referring to games such as Anthem, Star Wars Battlefront 2, and Battlefield 5, all games produced by EA, and all have had less than stellar initial releases. Though while all of these should be open and closed stories, I think there's a little more going on than what we realize. But before I get into some of the background information and what I really think EA is gearing up for, I wanted to thank today's sponsor, Skillshare. I am absolutely thrilled to be working with them again, as I am a huge proponent for continued learning, and their online classes do an absolutely phenomenal job with it. For those of you freelancers who may not know, Skillshare is an online learning community that offers membership with meaning. With so much to explore, real projects to create, and the support of fellow creatives, Skillshare empowers you to accomplish real growth. Skillshare offers classes designed for real life, so you can move your creative journey forward without putting life on hold. You can learn and grow with short classes that fit your busy routine, such as audio and video editing, photography, and even courses on how to start streaming and content creation effectively. The first 500 of my subscribers to click the link in the description will get 2 free months of premium membership, so you can explore your creativity. Skillshare is also incredibly affordable, especially when compared to pricey in-person classes and workshop. An annual subscription is actually less than $10 a month. I've personally been watching Real Productivity, How to Build Habits That Last, taught by Thomas Franks, and Ali Saunders, How to Save Time Editing and Edit More Efficiently in Adobe Premiere Pro. Thank you so much again to Skillshare for sponsoring today's video, and now back to it. So by now you all already know what is currently going on with Anthem, and if not, don't worry, we'll touch on that in just a second. But I wanted to discuss quickly more recent events and how they might pertain to Anthem, if not EA as a whole. On April 23rd, Battlefield 5 developer DICE announced that they would be ending support for the game after this summer's upcoming content update. While this game isn't my personal cup of tea, as I typically prefer fantasy and sci-fi games, and I may have a total of 50 hours logged into the game, I have been following it since launch, and I did additional research before making this video, as always. Now, as some of you may know, the game got off to a pretty bad start. While the game was visually impressive, it was met with backlash for a number of reasons, from historical liberties being taken to it feeling evidently pretty bare bones compared to previous entries in the franchise. The game itself had a pretty fun core in my opinion, but it was littered with bugs even months to a full year after release. There's more that I could add, like the pretty much abandoned roadmap, sound familiar, but it isn't really relevant to the overall point. After Firestorm, DICE's attempt to cash in on the Battle Royale hype failed, they refocused efforts on the multiplayer, and just when the game was showing signs of getting its footing back, the announcement was made that they were cutting support after the summer's content drop, and a new Battlefield would be in development with a release timeframe of 2021. Now, I don't know how set in stone that is with the COVID-19 pandemic and developers working from home, but all I can say is we will see. Though 5 days later, on April 28th, Dennis Brandville, Star Wars Battlefront 2's head honcho, would announce that out of the blue, the Scarif update would be the last update Battlefront 2 would receive. As most of you will recall, and it seems to be a running trend with this list, Battlefront 2 didn't get off to the best start. As a matter of fact, Battlefront 2 sent shockwaves throughout the gaming industry with their near pay-to-win mechanic, the dreaded loot crates. This damaged EA's reputation further than what it had already suffered, and not just from fans, but even world governments. And of course, the surprise mechanic meme was born from a hearing in the UK by one of EA's lawyers.
Do you consider them ethical?
So what we look at as surprise mechanics.
DICE would later remove the loot crates, and over the course of the last few years, they utterly transformed the game with years of free updates, listening to community feedback, and turned the game back around from the literal depths of hell. It goes right up there with redemption stories in the gaming industry with No Man's Sky, in my personal opinion. Which is why it was so insanely shocking to hear the past week that an incredible redemption story of a game dripping with potential would have its support pulled. What's more, there more than likely won't be another Battlefront 2 game from DICE, as there hasn't been an announcement of a successor yet, like there had been in the past when Battlefront 1 ended and they were working on Battlefront 2 almost immediately afterwards. What's more, people like the famed community manager Ben Walk, who in my personal opinion is one of the best community managers in the gaming industry, and the aforementioned Dennis Brandvold leaving the team altogether to be rumored to be working on the next Battlefield installment as well. As a huge fan of the game, I'm still puzzled and really disappointed if Battlefront 2 was axed to support the development of Battlefield 6 and essentially redeem the franchise. And then we come to Anthem. By now you all already know the story beats, but I'll summarize it as best I can in a single breath. Here we go. Anthem had 6 years of development time, most of which was chalked up to indecisiveness. A stage trailer was released for E3 2017, setting up an unrealistic bar and unethical representation of the final product. The real game was in more or less development for a year and a half, and arguably managed to have a worse release date than Andromeda. Oh my god. Yeah, that's without any editing software. That is literally one breath. Though I think I got most of it, right? And despite it being the best-selling game of February 2019, and one of the top 5 best-selling games of 2019 as a whole, Anthem was still another huge disaster for EA, and another strike against the once beloved BioWare name. After months of bug fixing, content drips and droughts, the roadmap being abandoned, and the short shift to seasonal content, Anthem would officially go into hibernation mode, where it currently is shortly after its 1-year anniversary. However, while vanilla Anthem might be in hibernation mode with all update and support being pulled with the exception of store rotations, yay, BioWare's Commander-in-Chief, Casey Hudson, announced the Anthem team would be completely revamping the game with the fabled Anthem 2.0/Anthem Next update. I've always said that Anthem was built and released ahead of its time and should have been a next-gen release altogether. Though whether or not this is going to be a completely new game or an update to the base game remains to be seen. But it isn't something that we will be touching on in this video and maybe one in the future. I'm sure by now you all are seeing a trend with almost half of EA's existing titles outside of their sports franchises. It seems that, more or less, EA is taking their games back to the drawing board and potentially gearing up for the next generation of consoles. Over the last 5 years or so, EA as a whole has suffered a lot of damage to its image and reputation, not to mention the studios it backs. Now, I remember a time before I became a content creator, got the amazing opportunities to learn more about what goes on behind the scenes of game development, and was made privy to the reasoning behind some very major decisions, that I would be furious about EA for what they were doing to some of my favorite studios and franchises. Mass Effect Andromeda is a very memorable example. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not advocating for their past mistakes and errors, on both the part of EA and their studios. Most of you who are regulars on the channel know that I've been very critical of EA and BioWare despite my friendships with members in both entities, being a game changer, and currently sitting on the EA BHC Building Healthy Communities Council. Though from what I can tell sincerely, EA is making a real push to change how it releases games in the future. While I personally don't necessarily see the logic in ending support for Battlefront 2 and reallocating the team and resources to the Battlefield franchise, one thing that I have definitely learned since my time in this industry is that there's always more to these decisions than surface level. There will always be details and internal discussions that we will never know that influence these moves. What I think a good bulk of gamers forget is that games are a business, not something made solely out of the goodness of a studio's heart. Studios and games are businesses, and while they hold some responsibilities to their consumers as stakeholders, they ultimately have to make decisions that keep them profitable. I just ask that you all keep something in mind. No developer wakes up in the morning, stretches, pops their back, takes a good old sip of their coffee, exhales and says, I want to make a bad game today. As my own experiences are telling me right now as a creative director on a project, there are entities and things that are far out of your control. And sure, while delaying your game or delaying your project is always preferable, there's always more that you can do and always more that you can fix, ultimately that's not always an option. And that's more or less the moral of the story of the gaming industry. Regardless, the next generation of games will be crucial for EA to rebuild their image. They've hopefully got a No Man's Sky level redemption story in the works with Anthem 2.0, the Battlefield franchise to save, the continued success of Apex Legends, their sequel to Jedi Fallen Order, and a number of other new IPs and sequel titles that are quietly in the works. Personally, as a gamer, I remain cautiously hopeful for what EA will be able to do this next generation of games, but they have to absolutely nail their next couple releases. I know many of you, including myself, are getting excruciatingly tired of purchasing a dud game on release and have it slowly patched to where it is either a product that it should have been at launch, or even playable at a base level. Only time will tell. But what do you all think of EA's future with these franchises and their releases on the next-gen consoles? Can they turn around their reputation slowly, or do you think it's just too late? Let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section below, as I really do read through all of your comments and I will reply if there's conversational potential. I hope all of you fantastic freelancers have an absolutely phenomenal day. I hope you're staying safe and well, and I look forward to seeing each and every last one of you in the next video very soon. And remember, freelancers, we are strong alone, but we are so much stronger together.